In this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly the step-by-step strategy that we use to generate over 300 leads in the span of not more than 3 months for our client MoFin lending. I'm going to walk you through the workspace here in the settings software. This is the performance dashboard. And as you can see, this is actually legit. These are the campaigns that we ran for this client. And as you can see, we've generated 314 positive responses out of over 800 replies, which means an almost 40% average positive reply rate over not more than 3 months, right? So let's get started. There's also the client testimonial right here, which I'm going to share in the video somewhere in here. And let's get started, right? So targeting strategy, the targeting part of this process is the most important part because we just couldn't get it wrong, right? Like being MoFin's offer, such a demand capture offer, where essentially is an offer where you cannot really generate demand for it. Only those investors who want to take a loan will take it and will accept our client's offer, right? We just couldn't get targeting wrong. So we first identified how to find the leads for their specific target market. And so instead of using broad outreach methods, for example, Apollo, everyone uses Apollo, we leveraged a specialized niche tool. And don't get me wrong, Apollo is good to find contact details and to find contact at specific companies, but to find the accounts in the first place and find the companies, we leveraged a specific niche tool to identify investors with previously borrowed capital from competitors of our client, right? That approach was extremely relevant because these prospects were active real estate investors looking for exactly what our client offers. So targeting was on point. Automating and scaling list building and outreach. So our clients' outreach scripts were already working pretty effectively, but they needed someone to automate the entire process, streamline the entire process, and then scale it with higher volume while still doing the exact same level of personalization and relevance and improve the process, the outreach process they developed in-house in the first place, right? So this is kind of the workflow. As you can see, pretty simple visual, but it's essentially using a niche tool for account research and list building combined with Clay.com, a Clay.com workflow that employed 3 different email finder methods. We were able to gather valid email addresses for prospects where initially we only knew the company names, right? So if you have an idea of list building and contact enrichment, you can understand it's super hard to find valid contact details for companies and for contacts where you only know the company names of, right? So we only knew the company name, and based on that, we were able to not only find contact details, but also identify the most relevant contacts at those companies. When it comes to pre-qualification and segmentation, we used this process within, again, Clay. We implemented a sophisticated pre-qualification process in Clay to find data about the companies and pre-qualify based on specific criteria, such as whether the loan amount met a specific criteria defined by the client. We also segmented leads based on whether the company or the investor had already sold the property or not. And we used that data to then create 2 different types of messaging with different positioning of the offer to make it as relevant as possible for each segment. So the data that we found here, that we scraped here for the pre-qualification and segmentation process, was not just for the sake of pre-qualifying companies and pre-qualifying these prospects. It was also useful to generate more relevant pieces of copy that we could send to prospects and therefore get that high positive reply rate, which is 40% on average over about 3 months. Now, that being said, we gathered specific custom fields like the address of the property that they took a mortgage for, the mortgage maturity date, and the previous lender that the investor used, right? So since some of these campaigns had very small lists, we ran 16 different campaigns in the first 37-day time frame. In the first 37 days, again, our client closed 2 new customers. And again, it's been about 3 months so far. So over 3 months, we ran 55 campaigns. Actually, we are setting up the last 2. We ran 53 campaigns. Some of these had fewer than 100 emails, but they were all worth running because the positive reply rate was really insane in some of these campaigns, and the quality of leads received as well. As you can see on the screen right here, we got some campaigns with 7 leads contacted, 100% positive reply rate, almost 30% positive reply rate. Here we got 1,500 prospects contacted, 53 positive responses. It's pretty insane. 33 prospects contacted, 3 positive responses, 500 prospects contacted, 12 positive responses, and so on and so forth, as you can see from the numbers in here. So thanks to the automated Clay workflow, the list building process remained pretty efficient and streamlined despite the multiple campaigns that we ran for this client. Now, when it comes to copy and messaging, we found that simpler copy worked better than using overly complex language. So we made it very clear why we were reaching out specifically to them, making the messaging extremely relevant and personalized to each prospect, and very often using more than 2, 3, 4 custom fields for each of these campaigns or each of these scripts. When I say custom fields, I mean fields or to personalize an email. So for example, the property, mentioning the property address, mentioning the lender that used previously, mentioning the mortgage maturity date, mentioning the company name. This is pretty basic, and of course the first name. This is an example. Hi Andres. So this is company name. So company name. So your company borrowed from custom lender name. This is the lender name that they used previously, and your loan for this is the property address is maturing on mortgage maturity date, right? Another one, very simple, just one sentence, just following up on property address. Are you considering financing it? And so on and so forth. And in a lot of these scripts, actually, most of, I would say, the longer scripts, we used a lot of custom fields, making the emails very personalized to each prospect, and therefore leading to that average positive reply rate of 40%. Just to give you context, the average of the industry is below 15%. So keeping an average positive reply rate of almost 40% over 3 months and over especially 800 replies, that is pretty impressive. Now, going against best cold email practices is something that I wanted to bring up, because we even went against the typical cold email best practices regarding, for example, email length and the use of certain spam words, right? So words that are typically flagged as spam by email service providers. Now, we added more details to some emails, and some emails went even to up to 200 words, which is way longer than the average. And this approach, however, paid off really well, because we achieved a high positive reply rate by providing all the details that prospects wanted to know before responding. So a big concept that I think is very valuable when it comes to cold email is prospects who don't respond to your cold email, they were either not interested in the offer in the first place, or they had some questions and objections that weren't answered in the email in the first place, right? So by using so long emails and by providing so many details, we essentially answered already all the potential objections and questions that prospects might have had before responding. And therefore, that's why some of these campaigns got such a high reply rate and also such a high positive reply rate. That being said, even though we use some spam words, the reply rate, which is indicator of deliverability, didn't increase at all. In some of these campaigns, we got even higher, as you can see from the screenshots above here. This is just a pretty large campaign, one of the largest campaigns that we ran. 5.1% reply rate. Overall, the average over 3 months is 2.2%, which is pretty decent, considering that we used very long emails and also quite a few spam words. Now, when it comes to infrastructure, this is sending infrastructure that we used, and then list building, I'm going to go over that as well. So Portland for outreach domains, essentially you cannot send emails, you cannot send cold emails from your primary domain. It's very risky. If you get marked as spam, you're going to get your primary domain damaged. And so highly recommend to use outreach domains. I recommend you use Porkbun for buying outreach domains. Scaled Mail for email inboxes with a 50-50 mix of Google and Microsoft inboxes. They do set up the inboxes for you. EmailGuard.io for inbox placement tests and domain health tests to monitor and keep high deliverability, and then replace those inboxes and replace those domains that, according to EmailGuard.io, had lower deliverability and lower health. Clay.com for list building workflows, of course, super key tool. Within Clay.com, we were able to integrate many of the other tools that we used for all of the workflows, essentially, right? So email finder tools, for example, these are a lot of tools that we used within Clay, and that Clay allows you to integrate within the platform. So for example, Lead Magic, Find Email, and realistically many other tools that we use in a waterfall enrichment to find as many contact details or as many valid emails as possible for specific contacts. And then AI prompts, of course, to browse the internet and find relevant email addresses associated with the company. Now, there's also one thing I wanted to bring up here, GPT, so OpenAI, to use within AI prompts to essentially find the website, because as I said in the list building process, the only piece of data we had about these companies, about these investors, was the company name. So we had to find a website in the first place. So AI prompts that we used with GPT-4o Mini, with GPT-4o, and essentially OpenAI and their models to essentially find their website, making sure the website is correct, and finding as many details as possible about the investor, about the lead that we are reaching out to them personalize and use all those custom fields that led to such a high positive reply rate. Email validation tool, again, Lead Magic, email sequencer, people.ai. So that is how we managed to generate over 300 leads for our client in just about 3 months, with the first 2 customers closed in the first 37 days of launching campaigns. Now, that being said, you can do this all yourself, or we can do this for you. We're going to be doing infrastructure setup, recurring deliverability checks, market research, outbound offers creation, lead magnet creation, script running, AZ testing, CRM and pipeline management. So we're going to be doing everything for you to make sure you achieve success with outbound prospecting. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to book your one-on-one call with me in the first link in the description below. That being said, I hope to see you on the call. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.